11 Stoic tips for solving problems with people. Have you ever left a conversation feeling like you just fought a war? Or maybe you've spent hours replaying an argument in your head, thinking of all the things you should have said. If so, you're not alone. The ancient Stoics understood something profound about human relationships. The greatest battlefield isn't out there, it's in here. Today, I'm going to share 11 powerful Stoic techniques for navigating the most challenging aspect of human existence, other people. These aren't just philosophical ideas, they're practical tools that have survived for over 2,000 years because they work. Whether you're dealing with difficult co-workers, resolving family conflicts, or trying to understand why your partner keeps leaving dirty dishes in the sink, these Stoic principles can transform your relationships and your peace of mind. Tip 1. Focus on what you control. The cornerstone of Stoic philosophy is understanding what you can and cannot control. And here's the harsh reality. You cannot control other people, not their actions, thoughts, or feelings. Let me share a story. Last year, I had a colleague who constantly interrupted me during meetings. For weeks, I fumed silently, letting resentment build. My productivity suffered. My mood suffered. Finally, I remembered this Stoic principle. My response, my preparation, my communication strategy. I don't control his interrupting habit, his awareness, others' perceptions. Once I shifted focus to what I could control, my preparation, my communication style, my responses, the problem became manageable. I started preparing concise points, used more assertive body language, and when interrupted, calmly stated, "I'd like to finish my thought." The interruptions didn't immediately stop, but my suffering did. By focusing on what I controlled, I regained my power in the situation. The next time someone frustrates you, draw 2 circles. In the inner circle, list what you control about the situation. In the outer circle, list what you don't. Then focus exclusively on the inner circle. Tip 2. See people as mistaken, not malicious. When someone wrongs us, our default assumption is often malice. They knew this would hurt me, or they're doing this on purpose. The Stoics suggest a more useful assumption. Marcus Aurelius isn't saying people are evil. He's saying they're mistaken. They're acting from ignorance, not malice. Imagine you're in heavy traffic and someone cuts you off. Your immediate reaction might be fury. What an inconsiderate jerk! But consider alternatives. Maybe they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe they didn't see you. Maybe they were taught to drive aggressively. This perspective shift isn't about excusing bad behavior, it's about seeing it accurately. People rarely wake up planning to make your life difficult. They're usually just pursuing their own interests, often mistakenly. When my neighbor kept playing loud music late at night, instead of assuming he was intentionally disrespectful, I considered he might not realize how sound carried in our building. This perspective allowed me to approach him with curiosity rather than accusation. The conversation went surprisingly well. The next time someone upsets you, ask yourself, what might they be mistaken about that's causing this behavior? This creates space for understanding rather than conflict. Tip 3. Remember, everyone is fighting their own battle. The Stoics understood that behind every difficult interaction is a human being with their own struggles, fears, and insecurities. We often judge others by their actions, but judge ourselves by our intentions. We know all the reasons behind our behavior, but we rarely glimpse the full story behind others' actions. The customer service representative, who seems rude, might have just received devastating news. The friend who hasn't returned your texts might be battling depression. The partner who seems distant might be worried about losing their job. I remember being furious at a friend who repeatedly canceled plans. When I finally learned she was dealing with a serious illness she wasn't ready to discuss, my anger dissolved into compassion. I wished I'd extended that compassion sooner. This doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. It means approaching conflicts with awareness that there's always more to the story than what you can see. When someone frustrates you, mentally add the phrase, and I don't know the full story after your judgment. This simple addition creates space for compassion. Tip 4. Practice cognitive distancing. The Stoics were pioneers in understanding A powerful psychological insight. We are not our thoughts. We are the awareness observing our thoughts. When someone triggers you, your mind generates automatic thoughts, often extreme, black and white, and emotionally charged. Cognitive distancing is the practice of stepping back from these thoughts rather than immediately believing them. For example, if a coworker takes credit for your idea, your mind might generate thoughts like, "He's always undermining me," or "Everyone in this office is out to get me." Cognitive distancing means noticing these thoughts without automatically accepting them as truth. I used to have a relative whose political comments would instantly infuriate me. My thoughts would spiral. "She's deliberately trying to provoke me," or "she'll never change." When I began practicing cognitive distancing, noticing these thoughts rather than becoming them, I could engage more constructively. I used to have a relative whose political comments would instantly infuriate me. My thoughts would spiral. "She's deliberately trying to provoke me," or "she'll never change." When I began practicing cognitive distancing, noticing these thoughts rather than becoming them, I could engage more constructively. "She's trying to provoke me. I'm having the thought that she's trying to provoke me. He never listens. I'm feeling frustrated and thinking he never listens." This subtle shift creates space between you and your reactive thoughts, allowing you to choose your response rather than being hijacked by your initial reaction. When triggered, practice adding, "I'm having the thought that," before your judgment. This simple prefix helps you see thoughts as mental events, not reality. Tip 5. Use the pause. The space between stimulus and response is where your power lies. The Stoics mastered this space through what we might call the pause. When someone says something hurtful or infuriating, your immediate reaction is rarely your wisest response. The pause is a deliberate moment of non-action, a chance to let the initial emotional surge pass before responding. Seneca advised counting to 10 when angry. Modern neuroscience confirms the wisdom. It takes approximately 90 seconds for the physiological response of an emotion to be processed and released by your body. I once received an email that made my blood boil. My fingers itched to fire back an equally scathing response. Instead, I closed my laptop and went for a 10-minute walk. When I returned, I could still address the issue firmly, but without the counterproductive heat of my initial reaction. The pause doesn't mean you don't address issues. It means you address them from a place of clarity rather than reactivity. When triggered, commit to a minimum 90-second pause before responding. Take 3 deep breaths, feel your feet on the ground, and ask, what's the wisest response here? Tip 6. Practice perspective taking. The Stoics believed that understanding others' perspectives was essential for navigating conflict wisely. Perspective taking is the deliberate practice of imagining how the situation looks from the other person's viewpoint. This doesn't mean you agree with them, just that you're trying to understand their reality. Consider a disagreement with your partner about household chores. From your perspective, they're not pulling their weight. From their perspective, they might be contributing in ways you don't notice or value. Both perspectives contain partial truths. When my roommate and I argued about the thermostat setting, I was convinced my preference was reasonable and his was wasteful. It wasn't until I deliberately tried to understand his perspective. He grew up in a much warmer climate and genuinely couldn't concentrate when cold, that we found a workable compromise. The most powerful question in any conflict is, how might a reasonable, decent person come to hold this view or take this action? This question assumes the other person is reasonable and decent, which is usually true, even when we disagree strongly. In your next disagreement, take 5 minutes to write down the situation exactly as you imagine the other person sees it. Try to be as charitable and complete as possible. Tip 7. Choose virtue over victory. In any conflict, the Stoics would argue there's something more important than winning: maintaining your character and integrity. When we're in conflict, our focus often narrows to winning at all costs. We might use manipulative tactics, exaggerate, or hit below the belt, sacrificing our character for temporary victory. The Stoics remind us that how we handle conflict reveals and shapes who we are. The real victory isn't in dominating the other person, but in remaining true to your highest values throughout the interaction. I once had a business disagreement where I could have leveraged some personal information to strengthen my position. The temptation was strong, but I asked myself, is this who I want to be? The answer was clear. I found another way to make my case, one that preserved both the relationship and my integrity. Choosing virtue over victory means caring more about how you conduct yourself than about the outcome. Paradoxically, this approach often leads to better outcomes, as people respond to integrity with greater trust and openness. Before your next difficult conversation, write down 3 to 5 values you want to embody, like honesty, compassion, fairness. Review these before engaging and ask afterward how well you lived them. Tip 8. Practice negative visualization. The Stoics had a powerful technique called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This practice involves visualizing potential challenges before they occur. When it comes to difficult interpersonal situations, negative visualization means mentally rehearsing challenging scenarios and your ideal response to them. For example, if you need to give critical feedback to an employee who tends to get defensive, mentally rehearse the conversation. Imagine them responding defensively, and practice maintaining your composure and clarity. Before a potentially contentious family gathering, I spend time visualizing triggers that might arise and how I want to respond. This mental rehearsal has repeatedly helped me navigate difficult moments with grace rather than reactivity. This practice isn't about expecting the worst. It's about being prepared for challenges. When you've mentally rehearsed difficult scenarios, you're less likely to be thrown off balance when they occur. Before your next challenging interaction, take 5 minutes to visualize what might go wrong, how you ideally want to respond, what virtues you want to embody. Tip 9. Find the opportunity in every obstacle. The Stoics believed that every obstacle contains an opportunity for growth and virtue. This perspective transforms how we view interpersonal challenges. When someone is difficult, instead of just seeing the difficulty, ask, what virtue might this situation be calling me to develop? A micromanaging boss might be an opportunity to practice patience and clear communication. A critical friend might be helping you develop resilience and self-confidence. A disagreement with your partner might be strengthening your capacity for compromise. When I dealt with a particularly difficult client, I initially focused only on how unreasonable their demands were, shifting to see this as an opportunity to develop my diplomatic skills and boundary setting. Completely change my experience of the situation. This isn't toxic positivity or denying real challenges. It's strategically directing your attention to aspects of the situation where you have agency and growth potential. For a current interpersonal challenge you're facing, complete this sentence. This difficult situation is an opportunity for me to develop the virtue of saturo, then commit to practicing that virtue. Tip 10. Practice empathetic listening. While the Stoics emphasized internal management of our responses, they also valued genuine understanding of others. Most of us don't truly listen. We wait to speak. We formulate our response while the other person is still talking, missing the opportunity to genuinely understand their perspective. Empathetic listening means temporarily setting aside your own perspective to fully understand the other person's reality. It means listening not just to the words but to the emotions and needs behind them. When my partner and I were arguing about vacation plans, I caught myself formulating counter-arguments instead of truly listening. When I shifted to genuine curiosity about her concerns, I discovered worries I hadn't considered. This opened the door to a solution that addressed both our needs. One powerful technique is reflection. Paraphrasing, what you've heard before responding. So what I'm hearing is, this shows you're listening and gives them a chance to clarify if you've misunderstood. One powerful technique is reflection. Paraphrasing, what you've heard before responding. So what I'm hearing is, this shows you're listening and gives them a chance to clarify if you've misunderstood. In your next difficult conversation, commit to understanding before seeking to be understood. Ask clarifying questions and practice reflecting back. what you've heard before, sharing your perspective. Tip 11. Remember your mortality. The Stoics practiced memento mori. Remember you will die. Not to be morbid, but to bring clarity to their priorities. Remembering our mortality puts interpersonal conflicts in perspective. Many arguments that seem important in the moment become trivial when viewed through the lens of our limited time. Ask yourself, if this were my last day, would I choose to spend it in this conflict? Will this matter in 5 years? Is this worth the precious life energy I'm devoting to it? After losing a close friend unexpectedly, I found myself much less interested in petty disagreements and much more invested in meaningful connection. The clarity that came from this loss was a gift, one the Stoics suggest we can access without waiting for tragedy. Sometimes the most powerful action is letting go, not because the issue isn't real, but because your life and relationships are too precious to spend in unnecessary conflict. For a current interpersonal issue, ask yourself, on my deathbed, will I regret how I'm handling this? Let the answer guide your next steps. Conclusion. These 11 Stoic principles aren't about avoiding conflict or suppressing your feelings. They're about engaging with challenges in ways that preserve your well-being and integrity. The quality of your life is directly related to the quality of your relationships. And the quality of your relationships is shaped by how you handle inevitable conflicts. As Seneca said, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness, even, perhaps especially, in conflict. Which of these Stoic principles resonated most with you? Comment below and share how you plan to apply it in your life. And if you found this valuable, please subscribe for more practical ancient wisdom. The goal isn't to never have problems with people. The goal is to handle those problems with wisdom, integrity, and perhaps even grace.